Yes, it is.
So let's go ahead and start off. So first off, you made a statement referring to Governor Jones as corrupt. Could you elaborate on the corruption that you're witnessing?
Of course. So myself and my team here at the Sheriff's Department, obviously, as a sheriff, it's more political law enforcement than I'd like it to be, but that's what the job entails. So my job, obviously, is to not only maintain the Sheriff's Department, but also to speak on certain core issues within the county here in Tarrant. Uh, One of the bigger issues we have here in Tarrant County is a biker and a motorbike gang known as the Angels of Death, AOD, they go for short. My team has worked hard, and we still have very many open pending cases regarding the Angels of Death and certain members of that community or gang, you would call it. That we have outstanding warrants. We're constantly trying to crack down on them. They're not necessarily the most dangerous gang, but they can come very well close to it. So we keep our eye on them very closely. Our tactics in handling them is extremely in line and responsive to what they do. We do stay ahead of certain things, but we don't, target them at all points and times. I don't have my criminal investigations divisions constantly out there, scoping them out, scooping them out. We respond to whatever actions come from them, which lately has been actually pretty quiet. I hate to jinx myself, but pretty quiet, and we've had little to no issues with them. Uh, Governor Jones takes a different approach on that. And, I've noticed a very predatory stance on AOD that I don't agree with and that my core values don't align with. He's basically made his entire campaign about taking them down. Every time I've listened to speeches with him, it's the same rhetoric that it's, something to do with AOD, blah, blah, blah. He's constantly targeting them for anything that they do. And he does it the quite opposite way that we do it versus being responsive. He's constantly trying to find a way to shut them down or get somebody killed there. I mean, it's a very dangerous approach and dangerous rhetoric that he's spewing. Um, so I don't know if he's trying to get supporters out of it or what it is, but to me, it follows a very, very basic line of corruption that, again, I don't agree with, and my core values don't align with.
All right. So you mentioned that that involved corruption. Could I can understand that you may disagree with his tactics in regards to Angels of Death, but you mentioned corruption specifically. Would you be able to elaborate more on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is an active scandal that I've been following uh, that had to do with the first lady, or first woman rather. Uh, his wife had some partake in some type of sexual relations, allegedly sexual relations with an AOD gang member, uh, and that's kind of where I drew my line with Governor Jones. It's our job to uphold the values that we want to spew out at people. I could sit here all day and say things, but my my history is what speaks for me. I don't have to speak. Uh, he's kind of the complete opposite. He has to speak for things that he doesn't actually do. He goes against all of his values when he speaks, and having his own wife a part of a scandal so closely, to me, just speaks corruption. I've had the chance to speak with some of the leaders of AOD, obviously, over the course of my time fighting the crime against them, and they very often will speak on that scandal, but they'll also very often speak on how they always feel very targeted and they feel like they're being preyed on constantly. And while I can understand that's kind of part of our job, it's also not necessarily Governor Jones's job. It's law enforcement's job to handle things like this. The governor should be focusing on more core issues. And had he focused on more issues like our housing crisis, our child care crisis, or anything like that, we wouldn't, or our border crisis, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But instead, he has made his entire campaign about AOD, and to me, that's corruption all over. There's got to be a money trail there, and if I feel something shady like that, I'm not going to vote for somebody rather endorse them either.
All right. So in regards to the affair that you're referring to, do you believe that Governor Jones's actions that he's taking is more personal in regards that he's trying to get revenge for the affair that reportedly happened, or do you believe that he's rather going light, he's rather just talking about smashing down the AOD, but he really doesn't have anything against them and has been holding back?
No, I do truthfully feel whether it has to do with that scandal or not, I do feel that there is a personal issue and personal bias that is controlling his rhetoric.
Mhm. So you mentioned that the concerns of corruption, the affair, were brought to you by fellow citizens. Would you be able to elaborate on who these citizens were, if you're able to?
Unfortunately, I'm not, but it doesn't. I don't need to necessarily speak on those citizens because the Texas Tribune has done an article on it. I think it was back in July or maybe even August. They did an article on it. If you read up on it, they did an article on basically the entirety of what had happened, and even including that scandal with his wife. But unfortunately, a lot of those civilians have come to me in private. Some were AOD, but some were just citizens during some of my press conferences.
All right. And with the Angels of Death providing this information to you, uh, there's been concerns about the credibility of information that they've been presenting. They've been often discussing exposing Governor Jones, things like this. Uh, do you believe that they specifically shared this information to you coming up to the election cycle to sort of sway the election out of Governor Jones' favor at this time?
They may have absolutely, but the problem is I made up my mind before that. So whatever they say or don't say, and you're absolutely right. The credibility of what they say is constantly being judged, and it's being judged by me. I don't trust. Truth be told, it sounds terrible the way I'm going about this conversation, but I don't trust anything AOD says. I fact check it. I think about it 3 times, and before I even make actions, we've had them, give us threats before. I don't take them credibly until we know that there's something behind it. They have told us that people have, engaged in unlawful activities with them. And again, we don't take anything they say we take it for a grain of salt. We obviously we'll investigate it. It's not like we're going to sit there and, ignore possible dangerous threats, but we don't trust anything they say because a gang like that stands on the values they do, don't stand on values that I align with either. Uh, and truth be told, I don't think it's something that, how do I say this? I don't think it's something that, the way that Jones is going about it is the issue, but it doesn't mean that me sitting here today talking about the corruption means that I, am in support of AOD. I am not in support of AOD at all. I don't trust them. Like I said, we are constantly out there in response to every warrant that we could possibly serve on that we do. But we're not sitting out there every day just looking for them to do something next.
Hmm. So prior to this revelation, this letter that you presented, prior to the affair becoming your knowledge, how did you feel about Governor Jones prior to that?
Prior to me knowing about it, truth be told, I had just started rising the ranks here at TCSO. I believe when Jones was elected, I was still with a past city called Killeen Police Department. I was over there for a while. I had followed what he had done. I never really was a supporter of him. I didn't vote for him. And I just never really liked him to begin with. Like I said, he's never really controlled. He's never really focused on the core issues. He's focused on things that, while they matter, aren't necessarily things governors should be worried about. They're things that law enforcement, like myself, the sheriff, the highest law enforcement executive in the county, should be focused on. And there's plenty of other counties out there that he could be focusing on to possibly solve other issues. And again, border control is one thing that I'd like to see Governor Jones focus more on. If he's elected again, I'd like to see him change his values and where he wants to stand on certain issues.
All right. Do you believe that Governor Jones would be able to recover his image in time for the election?
It's not necessarily whether I believe he can recover his image; it's whether or not people will change his view of it. And I know that kind of sounds like the same thing, but it's the same thing of our election we have going on here. Our presidential election. It's not about what the person does; it's whether or not the people are willing to believe it or willing to believe that he can or can't do better. So whether I think he can or can't is kind of irrelevant. Uh, but whether or not the voters are swayed in the right way towards the right person is the real topic, and I don't know if that's going to happen before the election.
Mhm. All right. In regards to the letter that you drafted and the stance that you took, do you believe that represents the entirety of the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office or just you specifically?
any statements that I make as as the sheriff of the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office are views that, at least at the bare minimum, our department heads view. It doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the department's members have to follow that. We are still a free country, and there's no issue if a deputy of mine votes for Jones or doesn't vote for Jones, or if a captain does or doesn't. And the same even goes for my department heads, but we are aligned on our core values, or our core beliefs that Governor Jones does not have the endorsement of me or my department heads.
I know that the sheriff's office is a very political agency, as is with elections and everything, but do you believe that any law enforcement agency, not just sheriff's offices, should be more political and offer to back a specific candidate or discredit a specific candidate?
It's how every sheriff operates, unfortunately. And like I said, it's elected position, and it's not only my job to serve the people of Tarrant County, but it's also my job to serve them in a political function as well. And that political function involves law enforcement, but it also involves whether or not I should be endorsing certain candidates. It's something sheriffs do around the country. The last two administrations here, last two sheriffs here, did endorse Jones. Obviously, they have both been reprimanded and fired at this time, but they both endorsed Jones at the time. I believe I'm the only sheriff to not endorse a governor for re-election.
All right. Do you believe that the other agencies, municipal and state agencies, should express preference to a specific a governor or candidate?
I don't believe the municipal agencies need to. It's really up to them whether or not they feel they should or shouldn't. I don't think they need to. It's both myself and the state board in order to do that. So the state patrol, Texas Department of Highway Patrol Department of Public Safety, excuse me. Jacob should be the one to decide if he wants to spew that out. But we are the two people that either represent the state or represent the county. I'm an elected representative. He is a promoted representative. So it really depends, but I don't really think it's necessary for municipal agencies to. But it doesn't mean that I think they shouldn't. It's just not necessary.
All right. Do you personally back a specific candidate right now?
As my position as sheriff, I am endorsing a candidate, and I will announce that today. If you'd like, I'd be more than happy to give you an endorsement.
If you could, that would be great.
Yes, I'm endorsing Matthew Jacobs. He's the governor candidate that I would like to see become the next governor.
All right. Does this represent the sheriff's office as a whole, backing Governor, well, the image of the sheriff's office as a whole, backing Governor Matthews?
Again, I can't stress this enough. It is my job as the sheriff to make those decisions. It does not mean it needs to represent my department members. But when any type of statement like that is made or an endorsement is made, it is at the bare minimum a backing of both the sheriff, undersheriff, and the chief deputy. Everything else below that is a decision that each one of my department members can make. And the image of the sheriff's office does not get skewed in any way for me endorsing or not endorsing a candidate. We are still out there proving that we are serving our people, doing as we should. We have still showed up to Governor Jones's rallies and press conferences in support of his protection. But it is not necessary for me to destroy the image just by endorsing a candidate or not endorsing.
All right. Did anyone influence this choice for you to back Matthews as a governorial candidate?
No, not at all. Like I said, I make my own decisions. That's not up to somebody else, and there's no financial gain for me for backing or not backing. And in fact, it could possibly, if Governor Jones is reelected, it could possibly pose a threat to my sheriff's department in terms of financial stability for our department.
All right. Do you mind if I ask why you picked Matthews over the other candidates?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for a fresh start. I think we all are. I think we're ready to see a new governor that shares values that most of us Americans here and citizens of Tarrant County do, and citizens of Texas, residents of Texas. He's told me before, and actually after this, I'm going to be showing up to his press conference he has going on now. But he's shown that his values are more in line with what I'd like to see, both focused on childcare, border crisis, and basically the middle class as well, which I'd like to see represented a little bit better. He's there for us, and I'd like to see him do what Governor Jones did.
All right. Do you believe that this would be subject to change with any other candidates that you would back, or do you believe until the election that it will almost certainly be Matthews?
No, things change. Things absolutely change. Matthew could come out and say something stupid or do something stupid, and another candidate could catch my eye. It really all depends. We haven't had a lot of candidates in this election, uh, so it's really just dependent on what candidates decide to enter the race. And if they do, then yes, my position could change, or it could be this way for the rest till election day.
All right. I don't believe I have any further questions for you, Sheriff. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, that is it. Remember, we are all citizens of Tarrant County, and whether who is or isn't elected, we're still here to represent the people, and that's it. We will still continue to serve people to the best of our ability and protect the citizens of Tarrant County.
All right. Terrific. Thank you so much for your time, Sheriff.